Guys, here's the top 25, the AP top 25, and there is a change at the top. It is Texas after their yet dominant win against UTSA and Arch Manning with what he did when Ewers went out, and more on that in a moment. Georgia flips to number 2 after what was a dicey game, no question, on the road against Kentucky. There you see the top 5. 6 of the 7 are SEC. Ohio State is the lone wolf. And then you see the top 10. Big 12 with Utah is still 12. You have Kansas State moves up a notch. Oklahoma State back to back there with the Big 12. And then Iowa State in at number 20. So there we are with that.
Texas was fantastic the other day, and Georgia was not. So here you get a team that, look, Texas should have beaten UTSA. There's no doubt about that. But Georgia putting up only 13 against Kentucky, set off some red flags clearly for the voters. Not enough to put them behind anybody but Texas. But considering that Arch Manning came in and they didn't miss a beat, he didn't look like, a guy playing his first extended minutes in a game at all. He looked really fantastic. And, yeah, I think the hype train is leaving the station on Texas even faster than it was before.
Yeah, you couldn't have drawn up a possible better scenario if Quinn Ewers is going to be knocked out of a game than to have Arch Manning come in and put on a Hollywood script type story. I don't know how people can possibly still try to take away from that and how impressive that was. I mean, I see people, look, that he just dumped off that pass and the guy ran with it. It's like, yeah, but he spotted him and he was running through open field. So, I mean, that's just overall credit to the offense, but he's still got to find the guy, make the throw. And, he did some other things that weren't just throwing to wide open receivers, but, he's a figure that's going to be very polarizing. And because of where he plays, there's going to be a lot of hate on him because of who he is. There's going to be a lot of hate on him because of who he is, and where he plays, there's going to be a lot of love for him. And it's going to be magnified like it was on Saturday 10 times more than it would be maybe at a lot of other schools that aren't on that level. So it's going to be an incredible story to watch unfold, this Arch Manning chapter at Texas and in his college football career, because he's already done so many amazing things in such little amounts of time. It's almost kind of silly and make-believe in a strange way. But there he was. I mean, and it was very real on Saturday. So I don't think the polls should be ironclad. I don't think Georgia should just sit there every time they win, no matter how it looks. They just deserve to be number one because they were already number one. I hate polls like that. I think if a team comes in and looks better than everybody else, then put them at number one. And if you think Texas is the best-looking team in the country after Saturday, then put them at number one. And so that's what people did, and I don't fault them for that whatsoever.
All right, I agree. And Texas looks like they're the better team. Georgia has beaten up an opponent or two, but they were very fortunate. We'll get to what Mark Stoops said following the game about punting near midfield. There's a lot to get to. As I mentioned, one note about the top 25. I did not realize this. Nicole Auerbach had this one. UNLV at number 25. It is the first time that the UNLV football program has ever been ranked in either of the two major polls. So great for Barry Odom. They had the win against KU. First time ever that they have been ranked in either one of the major polls in college football, and that's a great accomplishment for UNLV.
Yeah, I thought there would have been at least some point. I mean, it's not like they're a new football program. They just wore throwbacks from the 70s, right? So I thought there would have been at least one time where they cracked it, but congratulations to Barry Odom. Mm-hmm. There's going to be people saying his name, for other stuff, but UNLV's got a good thing going, and maybe a Pac-12 invite could be in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a really impressive win over Kansas, and to have two Big 12 wins is certainly a nice feather in your cap. And no matter who they're against, I mean, you're not the favorite in those games usually, if ever. So to go and beat not one but two teams in a quote-unquote better conference than you or power conference is really impressive. A lot of teams would hang their hats on just doing that once, much less twice in less than a month of the beginning of the season. And so, yeah, they've definitely carved out their mark early on, and they are a bit unorthodox at quarterback, but a lot of fun to watch, and it works for them. And so they're going to be a fun team to watch the rest of the way, and maybe knocking on the door of the G5 discussion at the end of the year. We'll see how all that goes, but certainly I think they're banging on the door of a Pac-12 invite, or Pac whatever that's going to be called invite, Pac-8 probably for starters, but they're a shoo-in, I would think, whenever this next round, which seems to be like it's almost inevitable that they're going to be adding sooner rather than later based on everything I've read and heard over the last couple of days. Yeah, you would think that UNLV will be right in that next wave. It just makes too much sense to not have them a part of the new Pac-12, whatever.
UNLV's been playing football since what year is this? I think it's 1978. They had an 11-win season in 1984. They have never won 10 games or more since. 9 consecutive losing seasons prior to Barry Odom arriving last year, and he took them to a 9-5. We'll skip over the coaches poll, Garrett, get to that maybe later on in the show. How about UCF? On the road in Fort Worth, there were a couple of different times I kept up, was watching. We kind of discussed games as they're going on a little bit. Like that's when we knew that Quinn Ewers had gone down. Craig said something to me, and then we're always kind of looking at a game or two. And then as UCF battles back in position to try to win a game against TCU that seemed like they had this game pretty much set until this play.
At the 20-yard line, KJ back to throw. Jefferson throws to the end zone. Touchdown! Kobe Hudson! 37 seconds to go. Kobe Hudson makes the catch and a PAT from taking the lead.
There's a flag, but I think they're going
to... So that's our good friend Mark Daniels, UCF Radio Network, UCF Athletics, on the what was go-ahead touchdown. But then TCU put themselves in position to possibly win the game. In 2022, they make this field goal, but this is a different year.
58 yards for TCU. If he misses, we win. If he makes, it's heartbreak. Football, the left hash. Final play of the game. Here's the snap, placed down, the kick on the way. The kick is up, and the kick is...
no good.
No good! He missed it, and UCF wins! And the Knights get out of here with an amazing comeback!
Oh, my goodness.
35-34, UCF wins!
That's Mark Daniels. Now, I have one critique. The color guy, don't take that away from the play-by-play guy. I know it was a big moment. We've heard that.
He was too excited.
Yeah.
But, and Mark handled it great. Also, you can just drown him out, too.
Yeah,
like he did. But I watched the first half of the game, and then I was so disappointed at how it was going, and I thought, all right, well, I'm going to flip over and watch something else. Then just texting back and forth with a buddy of mine, I was like, man, that UCF game turned out to be a dud. Colorado State's terrible, so they're not even making this a game with Colorado. Just nothing right that's on right now is really that good. And he's like, I would turn TCU back on. Like, go ahead and turn it back on. And I flipped back over to it because I'd taken it off the multi-view, and holy cow, the fourth quarter was great. Huge win for TCU.
UCF.
For UCF. TCU, though, I mean, they're a lot better than they were a year ago. That's clear. They still have problems on defense, but first year of Andy Avalos. And the other thing is, Sonny Dykes, every time, I think about what he said about how good he thought Josh Hoover was, and we were all like, oh, that's interesting. You're not wrong. Josh Hoover played really well.
Yeah. They were winning games like this throughout the year in 2022. They lose one like that this year.
It was an incredible win for UCF. I mean, that's the main thing that sticks out about this is just how major of a win that was, how improbable of a win that was, and how important of a win that was for Gus Malzahn and his football team. I thought KJ Jefferson, for as bad as he looked in week one, has been better both games since and was really good on Saturday night. R.J. Harvey's arguably the best running back in the entire Big 12 and certainly one of the best in the entire country. Kobe Hudson's same thing when it comes to wide receiver. Colton Boomer with a big, huge kick. And I just think that was a great team win for UCF. And pulling one out, it'd be one thing if it was in Orlando, but that was in Fort Worth. That was in the heat of Texas. And I know that's not necessarily so much different for Florida, but it's enemy territory. You're starting out conference play on the road, and you don't really know what to expect. And certainly when you're getting smacked around the way that they were on the scoreboard early on, you thought pretty quickly after TCU scored right there after halftime that this one was pretty much all over, like Paul said. And to the Knights' credit, they stood in the fight and kept in it, and it's a testament to that team that they were able to come back and win that game. I mean, I was shocked when I saw that start to get to the very end and saw that UCF had a chance to actually win that game, because it was looking like it was straight up blowout territory, and it was going to be one of those, all right, back to the drawing board and reality check and, mope back home to Orlando and, go back to the drawing board. And instead you're celebrating one of the great wins in your 2 years in the league and one of your best wins in school history. I mean, they were on the receiving end of this last year against Baylor in so many ways. Not the exact same, but like they know what it's like to lose at the very end of a game. And at home they lost to Baylor. And this time they're on the road and they're the ones that rally back. And this could be the difference in playing for a Big 12 title or getting into a bowl game. That's this game versus that game. So, yeah, that's a huge win. Obviously, don't want to celebrate too much in week 3, but that was big time for them. And KJ Jefferson, when he's on, I mean, they are a really, really dangerous team. And so I'm very excited about the direction they're headed.
Well, it was a huge win. I text Mark Daniels like soon after it ended. And thank you, Mark, for sending that audio from the UCF radio network and UCF athletics. What a great, great win. A couple of 2 or 3, 4 quarterback stories. Dave Aranda today meeting with the media following their win against Air Force when they finally opened it up in the second half and blew the doors open, which they were expected to do. You never know anymore because of the last couple of years, but they did. Dave Aranda, I asked this question earlier today. Sawyer Robertson was efficient. He took care of business. Of course, DeQuan Finn was out. He was in a sling on the sideline in the game. What is the update? Dave, what's DeQuan Finn's status? And with Sawyer doing what he did, is he your QB1 this week?
We're going right now day to day. DeQuan's out of his sling, and so we had practice this morning, so he was able to move around better. There's limitations on what we can do per day, but I think we're in a good spot. We had the Player of the Game award that we do when we win. Sawyer won that award, and so the team was really fired up and excited for him. And so we're going to take it, see what brings tomorrow, what DeQuan can do, and see how we progress, and hope to have an idea of what's it going to be prior to Saturday.
I don't think I'm overstepping my bounds here. I think that the Baylor fan base would be stunned if DeQuan Finn, not stunned, but I think that with what Sawyer did against Air Force, that he earned the ability to try to continue it into the second week. But we're not at practice. We don't know exactly if DeQuan is completely healthy, although by him practicing today and by Sawyer Robertson playing well on Saturday, DeQuan Finn back at practice, I don't know how this is going to go. I have a feeling that most Baylor fans are going to want to see Sawyer at Colorado. Doesn't mean he follows that up.
Well, I'm Baylor media. I want to see Sawyer at Colorado. That was night and day offensively from what we saw the first couple of weeks. That was a huge difference in that offense. And I know maybe Air Force isn't this or that. They're not Air Force from 2 years ago. They're not a veteran team. They're a young – I don't care. They were completing passes they weren't completing the first couple of weeks. They were making big plays they weren't making the first couple of weeks. They were playing with a confidence level they weren't playing with the first couple of weeks. Or maybe it was just that they strung together enough positive plays that it appeared maybe more confident than it had when they were, just beating up on a Tarleton State or just kind of getting beat up on by Utah before rallying once Cam Rising got hurt. I mean, those were our two example sizes. And so, to DeQuan Finn's credit, they blew out Tarleton in the opener, but it wasn't like impressive. You didn't walk away from that game going, man, the offense was awesome. You're going like kind of expected more from the offense. Yeah. And then against Utah, they didn't do much of anything until the second half when Cam Rising got hurt. And in this game, you get the notification from our website right before that Sawyer's going to start. I had completely forgotten that DeQuan was even hurt because just the offense was so blah, like I didn't even think about it. And my whole thing was, if he wasn't hurt and you said Sawyer starting that game, would anybody have really been upset by that? No, I don't think so. I think people would have been like, good, give him a shot. Why not? We don't look that great. The whole thing around DeQuan Finn is that he got a lot of money to come here, right? So everybody wants to tiptoe or get worried about what happens if you you paid him all this money and he's not the starter. Well, I guess he's got a really cush job then because he's going to get a lot of money to not play all that much. But I understand that he was like the guy. But based on what we saw Saturday, I'm not trying to overreact too much. You got to ride the hot hand going to Colorado, and Sawyer was a much hotter hand in that one game than DeQuan was in those first 2 games.
I don't know what they're going to do. It would not surprise me if they went with DeQuan Finn in Boulder. It would not surprise me. But I think that Dave Aranda has to be careful here to play with the emotions of the team and also even with the fan base. You can't make decisions based on what the fan base wants. You can't, although that's happened before at various programs. I just think based on how they looked, the first half was no better than any other half they played this year. But I thought the second half, they just looked like a team that had a rhyme and a reason on offense. And the defense played well, too.
I'll disagree on the first half. The whole reason the first half didn't look good is because they kept fumbling the football.
Yeah, but
they were moving the ball. Like, if you look at where the fumbles were occurring, they should have had a lot of points on the board. I mean, it should have been like a 2-3 score lead.
They could have had 17 points in the board.
And it would have been like 17-3.
Yeah.
And how are you feeling at halftime versus kicking a field goal right before half, and you're going into half with all zeros, and you just made it 6-3.
The Bryson Washington fumble was probably close to the red zone. There was another one. Yeah. They can't. They're not good enough to turn the ball over like that, no matter who they're playing.
For those that didn't watch, they had 3 lost fumbles.
Yeah.
3 lost fumbles in the first half. It was
one of them near midfield.
It was 3-0. They also got stuffed on a 4th and short when they tried to rush to the line and gave the ball to their smallest running back, even though the bruiser was churning out yardage, the redshirt freshman. Let's give it to Richard Reese, and let's hurry to the line. Like, you don't have that good of an offensive line, so I guess you're trying to catch them off guard, but it's like, but you just, so anyways, they were making those, like 3 lost fumbles, a bad 4th and short call. That's the only thing that prevented this from being like 21-3 in the second quarter. So instead it was 6-3 at the half, and you're like, geez Louise. But they were moving the football. Like, Sawyer was making some plays, so to me, I don't think it's even a question. I know I'm not at practice, but they looked way different on offense with Sawyer Robertson running the show, because he hit some throws that DeQuan Finn, accuracy-wise, was not hitting in the first couple of weeks, and it opened things up in a major way. So I think you've got to ride Robertson into Boulder.
Well, Paul, what's the old thing about a starting quarterback, if he has an injury, is replaced, that when he's healthy, he comes back and takes his job? That's more of an NFL thing, you think?
I think so. But even then, Tony Romo got Dak Prescott, and
hey, man, Dave Aranda's job's on the line here.
Yeah.
He can't worry about DeQuan Finn's feelings, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but like that's what we're kind of facing here is with he's got to do what's best for the team.
This razor-sharp edge on what they must do well in every game that they have to win.
They have an opportunity to beat a very mediocre at best Colorado team this week on the road, which is something they've not been winning in most places. But now that they're 2-1, their arrows pointed up for the first time in 2 years. Like, go ahead and keep it pointing up. And if Sawyer Robertson's that guy and can give you more in the passing game, because Colorado's not going to stop the run. They're not, like, Baylor has running backs that they can keep throwing at them.
They might against Baylor. That's the interesting matchup, actually.
So, but Baylor has an opportunity here to maybe have the best running day they've had in a very long time. So do that. And if you can throw the ball as well and keep, just keep it away from that Travis Hunter guy, if you can do that, I mean, they can win this game on the road.
I think that whoever wins on Saturday, and this is not try to jump off a cliff, but I think whoever wins on Saturday, then you're putting yourself in position to possibly be bowl eligible at the end of the year. You cannot lose that game. Sure, you could still find a way to get the 6 wins, but that's coming up Saturday in Boulder. I think it's a win. You win that game if you're Baylor. Then to me, it looks a lot better for you that you're probably going to go to a bowl game at the end of the year.
I think it's a very winnable game. I don't know how likely it is, but I was half expecting people to be high off Colorado beating Colorado State, and Shedeur, having his numbers pretty nice there, looking pretty juicy after that game. I was kind of hoping they would already be sort of past all the negative talk and back to being like, we're Colorado, we're better than you, and that the bettors and everybody out there would feel the same way, because not a lot of people really know that much about Baylor, because Baylor's just not that interesting of a team right now. And so I expected like a spread to come out on Sunday of like Colorado like 6 or something. Hell, Baylor's favored when I looked last, they were favored by a point. So there's going to be no underdog.
It's changed it again then. Okay.
Well, I'm sure it's changed. It's the first couple days of betting. But when that line came out, it was originally like Colorado -1, and then I think it was Baylor -1 by the end of the day. So this is a game where I think both teams understand how even this is, and it really could go either way. And it is important for both in terms of getting bowl eligible because somebody's getting win number 3, and that's going to put you on a really nice path to get into the postseason. So I was kind of half hoping that Colorado would sort of get full of themselves once again, but I don't think that'll be the case necessarily because they're not favored. But if you're Baylor, you got to do whatever gives you the best opportunity to win, and I think that's Sawyer Robertson. And I think, if it doesn't work out, you ride the hot hand, and if the hand cools off, then throw DeQuan Finn in there. That's part of why you got him. But I just think to put DeQuan in there because he's the starter and he's healthy again when he hasn't really performed as well, I don't know. I don't like that mode of selecting your quarterback.
That's why they get paid the big bucks. We do too. We just don't get paid the same kind of bucks as Aranda, Spavital, among others. Baylor, I think, is a 1-point underdog. It's 2.5 on some books with Colorado as the favorite. But at the same time, after the game was over, Shedeur and the quarterback at Colorado State went up to say something to him, and Shedeur kind of got mouthy with him about, hey, you didn't want to shake his hand. Shedeur didn't have a chance for anyone from Nebraska to do that to him in Lincoln because he left the field early. You can't have it one way. I mean, just, show some class. What? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, he was responding to Braden Fowler and Nicolosi had talked trash earlier in the week.
But Colorado is the king of that. And do they respond? Do they have people not shake their hands after the game?
Well, I know how you feel about the issue. I'm just telling you the lead into it. It wasn't like Shedeur just rebuffed the guy for no reason.
So is Colorado the only school allowed to talk shit during a week before the game?
No. They're not. And look, I think Shedeur has a severe maturity problem when it comes to leading this team. Absolutely severe. And
he is the leader of the team, though. Yeah. Everyone knows that.
Yeah. He's got a maturity problem. He does. That's not irreparable, but it's – damn it.
Where's the cough button?
Yeah, you have one and I don't. We're not there yet over here. But it's not irreparable, but it's hard to grow up week to week. Usually it's over time. So I think that's a problem that's going to be there.
I understand you think I'm coming not at you, but at this situation.
No, I'm just trying to let you know.
Colorado is always out there. I think fine, that's how they play the game. That's their swagger. But for him to sit there and refuse to shake somebody's hands because a quarterback was talking something before the game, everybody does it every week between two teams in certain ways.
Yeah, I totally understand that. What I was trying to tell you, though, and I was trying to make clear for people, it wasn't as though Shedeur just rebuffed the guy for no reason. I was trying to let you know that it wasn't like he was just a D-head for no reason.
I know why he did it.
Okay, but we were just starting to go on the attack of Shedeur, and I was trying to, put some backing to it. So Braden Fowler Nicolosi, who's a Texas kid, who's from Colorado State, mouthed off or said whatever he said on social media. So after the game, Shedeur was not the better sportsman and didn't shake his hand. All I'm saying is that's where he was coming from. Do I agree with it? No. But am I surprised by it? Also, no, because that's just Shedeur, and that's Colorado, and so I wasn't shocked by that, and I'm not going to be the guy who overreacts to everything Colorado does. And you know what? If you're talking trash and then the other guy says, now screw you, bud, that's also part of talking trash. You don't always have to be the bigger man, but I do think when you're going to be a first-round quarterback, or that's what you think you're going to be, you do have to handle yourself better than that. I'm going to eventually get to that point. I don't agree with how Shedeur reacted to that, but I was trying to give some context for it. So that wasn't out of nowhere, but I'm sure there are plenty of people. I know there's already the anti-Colorado crowd anyways, but there's certainly going to be NFL scouts and people of that nature that I think will probably see that video and go yeah, immature, punk, not a leader, blah, 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 whatever. And, that's everybody's right to translate Shedeur however they want to. But, yeah, that was an ugly look, and I can see how you took it both ways. And not surprising, Colorado fans are like, yeah, screw Braden Fowler and Nicolosi, should have been talking trash. And everybody who's not so much on the Shedeur reaction side, that's a punk move, and you've got to be better than that if you want to be a top draft pick. So
my point also was Shedeur couldn't have anybody say anything to him after the game in Lincoln because he left the field with 2 minutes to go.
You got to.
And you wonder still Was that because he didn't want to have anybody get in his face? Because you can't just have it one way or the other.
You got to rise above.
And by the way, Xavier Shadur's not a coward. Never said that.
Nobody
No
said
one
anything
ever
close
said
to
that.
that. Nobody said anything close to that.
It was just that, hey, there's nothing. Talking trash is part of, not everybody does. Some schools, they don't do that at all, or they are pretty much neutered from doing that. But and I know that there's the rivalry between Colorado State. Things are personal, whatever. But there's also a point. The game is over. He was walking up to shake your hand, even if he was being an idiot early in the week with what he said. There's nothing wrong with saying everything's good, we beat your ass, and move on. But to sit there and not shake hands, I just think, again, things are different. They're different than when I was growing up. That's okay as well.
I also don't think we put anybody else under a microscope like we put Shador necessarily. I don't know how many times we talk post-game handshakes all that often. So I think there is a microscope on him.
We do it when coaches don't shake their hands.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't recall having many post-game handshake conversations on this show over the years, though. I mean, very, very few, if any. So, yeah, to the commenter, it's not about Shador being scared or anything like that. It's about whether you think it was a punk move or not, and some people do, and I'm sitting here trying to explain, why there's different viewpoints on this. But, yeah, nobody's saying he's scared to shake hands. It was nothing like that. It was more of were you being a punk for not doing that? And, again, everybody's going to have their own opinion on Shador, Dion, and all things Colorado.
I just, okay, he talked trash. He was dead wrong. You shut him up. You beat them soundly. Enjoy that, but again, there's nothing wrong with shaking somebody's hand after the game.
The best part is when you go shake his hand.
Yeah, to me,
that's what he needs
that's when you
learn.
Grab it and look him in the eye and go, "How you doing this week, man?"
Yeah, no, that's where it comes full circle.
Yeah,
that's where you go, oh, okay,
Now, and by the way, some of you are saying something about Shador. No, he's just boastful. But if you're going to be boastful, you do the same thing when you lose. Are you going to be there to shake hands, or are you going to walk in the locker room earlier than the game is over? That's my point. All right, Kansas. I'm not sure what's going on with them. Lance Leipold from Matt Tate expressing complete confidence in Jalon Daniels moving forward, says he's not worried about Jalon's competitiveness, work ethic, and attitude. Continues to be asked about Jalon Daniels, but he emphasizes everybody can do better, everybody, and it starts with the head coach. They have not had the start that people thought they would have.
No, absolutely not. Especially losing these two games like they have, close ones, and not really using all their weapons. And, it just – the offense looks wonky compared to what it was. There is some note here, and I wonder if we'll see it this week. Jeff Grimes has always called plays from the field. Lance Leipold has never had an offensive coordinator, and it's all of his time – call plays from the field. So before maybe they swap play callers out, which I do think that if they fall behind the eight ball is a real possibility, but I do see Jeff Grimes riding the elevator up to the booth this week.
Well, this was always a situation with Kansas where I felt good about them because their schedule was very weak on paper, and I wondered about them or worried about them because of the change at OC, and then also where was Jalon Daniels in terms of his return. And I think you've seen both of those latter points rear their ugly heads here early on. They miss Andy Kotelnicki. He was a heck of an offensive coordinator. Jeff Grimes is an adjustment for them, and Jalon Daniels is not the player that he was when he was being talked about as a future Heisman contender or Big 12 MVP type of guy. He had a couple of, scoring runs early in that game, which we hadn't really seen him open up with his legs very much, so that was encouraging, but it's just not there in the passing game, and they are in a bit of hurt right now. They are still fine in terms of the Big 12. They could still go on runs, but it just doesn't look very good on offense with Daniels at the helm right now, so they've got some things to clean up. He's got to find his groove, and so does Jeff Grimes. And if they can do that, there's still plenty of time to win a lot of games, go bowling, do all of that. But based on what we've seen so far, the odds of them ending up in Arlington at the end of the year are not none, but they are getting slimmer by the week because they just don't look like that team that you pictured them being at their best early on in the season. With Jalon Daniels full throttle with, no drop-off in play calling. That was all unrealistic probably to begin with, but that was your best-case scenario, and those aren't the best. That's clearly not the scenario they're dealing with right now. So, yeah, they're they're not in trouble, but they're teetering a little bit. I mean, they got to be careful of how they tread moving forward.
West Virginia this week, yeah.
And West Virginia's in a weird spot. They're coming off of a bad loss. They're very upset in Morgantown. So that's a game where you say, like, a must-win for somebody. I'm not trying to get, like, too over the top and make that more than what it is, but that's a must-win for one of those teams. Like, both those teams really, really need that win to feel better about the direction of things.
Texas flexed their muscles, and they have. They went, of course, into Michigan a couple of weeks ago in front of a million people and took Wolverine's soul. They had a quick start against UTSA. Quinn Ewers had the ab injury. You didn't know what it was. Was it his leg? Was it something else? Did he break a rib? We did not know that, and then you started to get updates. But during the time he was in the locker room and he came out without his uniform on, Arch Manning lit it up, had a huge game, 67-yard run in which he looked like nothing ever before when it comes to his uncles or father. He looked more like his grandfather, Archie, who was a pretty damn good scrambler because he had to be for an expansion team with the New Orleans Saints. But he was fantastic in that relief effort. He'll start probably this week against UL Monroe.
Well, Cooper was a wide receiver.
That still has to run. I mean,
so his dad was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So unlike his two uncles, God gave him speed.
Yeah, Peyton couldn't run out of his own shadow, as they used to say.
No.
Neither can Eli.
I mean, at this rate, he's going to lead them to an SEC championship and win a natty and then come back and do it all again and then go be the number 1 overall pick. I mean, it's like how could you better write his play so far and the little limited action that we've seen, and then especially there on Saturday. I mean, he's living up to the hype, and I know, like with Shedeur or with any number of guys that come and go in college sports and college football, there's believers and there's non-believers, and there's a lot of people that felt like Arch was hype and the last name and played at a small school and blah, 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 just wait. And here he is, and I don't know. It seems like he's adapted pretty well so far. I mean, we'll see him actually start games, and I mean, we'll see him this week, and then, beyond that, I don't know what Quinn Ewers' timetable is, but Oklahoma's right around the corner, and that's not that far away. So very interesting, just the timing of all this, and very curious to see how this plays out, because Arch looks like he's the real deal, and Quinn Ewers is also pretty damn good. So it's a great problem to have if you're Steve Sarkisian. The one thing about Texas is you're not going to be worried about their quarterback situation
at all
for a long, long time. I mean, it would take like a horrific set of events, like, multiple just like stepping wrong, going to class during the week, and the guy tears his ACL, and it would take like just some craziness for them to not feel great about their quarterback position and the depth and the talent that they have there. They're stocked and loaded to the gills, and this is a fascinating story to watch because of who's at the center of it and all that comes with that.
He almost broke Twitter. In fact, I'm not sure he didn't. You always hear that when he had the passes and all that.
I didn't understand the graphic of comparing it to his grandfather and uncle, but it was comparing to their NFL runs.
Yeah,
it was like it's the best run by a Manning, but it was comparing him at Texas to Peyton and Archie in the NFL. And I was like, well, so clearly they didn't have good college rushing stats, so you had to throw something together to make this look better than it was.
Peyton Manning couldn't run. Eli was somewhat not the best athlete either when it comes to that. Archie had to run for his life from his first snap ever, and was also dynamic when he was playing quarterback in college. So Ewers, the news is that it's better than they thought. That's fantastic news for both Quinn Ewers and also for UT as they move forward. Now, Michigan is going to the Texan. Alex Orji will be their starting quarterback, and they have a game against USC coming up this week. There's a note about Michigan.
Well, he was supposed to be the starter coming out, and then Davis Warren was, and their offense is not good. So we'll see how this works out for him. But Michigan, they've got to score some points. They're going to start looking like Iowa in a second.
Yeah, no, we have some other notes we'll get to following our different segments today. But, Craig, your thoughts about Alex Orji, who's a Texas kid, and getting the opportunity with Michigan?
Cool. I mean, the offense sucks, so I don't think it really matters what quarterback's running the show. One will be slightly better than the other over time. They'll have enough to determine or hopefully be able to determine like who the right guy for the job is. But this bouncing back and forth is not great, and obviously a very bad sign for Michigan. So they didn't come into the season as well stocked as they should have been. There's a variety of factors for that, but yeah, I don't care if you would have said Davis Warren's okay. The offense doesn't have a lot of up to it anyways, regardless of who's manning up at quarterback. So that's a problem for Michigan. They can still win some games, but that's a problem for Michigan for sure.
We still have Gary Barnett's going to join us in a minute. We will look at what happened with Washington State, Washington, the West Virginia 5 minutes left meltdown, and then also what's happening with the Florida Gators getting thumped by Texas A&M. The Mark Stoops decision. Bob Stoops on the Oklahoma-Tennessee game. Brent Venables against former Oklahoma national championship quarterback and Josh Heupel. There's a lot to get to with that.